Hey, everybody, welcome to the What's Up Solar Podcast, where we talk about innovations, renewable energy, particularly solar, because that's my field, and all things related. It is a big trickle down effect that we are seeing globally. And speaking of globally, sometimes you just have to get to the point. Having said that, I have Matt Larsson on the line with me here, and we're going to talk about some initiatives for electrification, and we may delve into all kinds of things. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Very good.
Now, recently, we've gone through this revolution, this 180-degree turn in the United States, because largely our renewable initiatives were based on incentives. And those incentives have been removed. So everybody's reeling now, trying to figure out what we're going to do. One thing that I know about America is we are not a totally electrified nation. And what I mean by that is we still depend on gas for our cooking, gas for our heating, but there are alternatives now. And I've seen where you've had some ideas on this subject because Europe is so much further than we are. What do you think about the electrification of America, like moving forward?
Well, I don't think, I think you're pretty well electrified. Your power production is the same as Sweden per person. And that's among the highest in the world. So and well, you have twice as much electricity in the US per person than, for example, Germany, and three
Hmm.
times as much electricity compared to the UK. But the difference may be what you use it for, and so so you use a lot of electricity for air conditioning, for example,
Yes, we do.
uh, uh, in the summer, and so on. And we use here up north a lot of electricity for heating instead, and we use a lot of electricity for uh, well uh, appliances and so on. And a lot of our electricity in Sweden goes, I think, as well as in the US, goes to heavy industry.
Mm.
And quite recently we've started to transform our transportation systems, both in the US and in Europe, to electric vehicles. But that has not yet become a big increase the demand for electricity very much, but it will increase the demand for electricity quite a lot. Um, but I think you're a very electrified nation compared to the average here in Europe, where countries have access to much less electricity than you have.
When you say have mu less access to electricity, can you help me understand that? Because you hit the switch, the lights cut on. No matter whether I'm in Spain, whether I'm in Austria, whether I'm in Germany, whether I'm in Sweden.
Yeah,
So
sure.
how is that different in other places?
Well, it's not like in some places the light doesn't turn on when you hit the switch. It's just that uh, you different countries use different amounts of electricity. You
Uh,
could say they have different numbers of switches, or different number of usages. Like uh, in, so, uh, it may be that they have in some countries smaller dwellings,
uh,
and you have fewer square feet
ah,
at home, and you have less to heat, or it may be that you don't have as use as many electric appliances,
yeah.
different kinds. I mean, or which is a big difference. Some countries don't have as much heavy industry as
Okay.
others, and they don't use as much for malls or um, for lighting, for other purposes, and so
Th-
on.
That makes sense because the houses in America are getting larger and larger and larger, where 2,000 to 5,000 square feet is becoming rather normal. And I was looking at houses last night on this app called Zillow and looking at these large houses. And I'm like, who's going to heat that thing?
Yeah, sure. And who's going to cool that thing? Uh,
Yeah,
so, uh, so the bigger houses you have, the bigger apartments you have, the more electricity you will need to heat them. And in many countries, well, heating differs, of course, but for air conditioning, I believe you can only uh, use electricity. For heating, you can use gas, or you can use other forms of energy as well. But but the mix, the total mix of um, electric uses of electricity make up the total use, and you have access, or you produce 4,000 terawatt hours electricity per uh, in the United States per year, and I don't quite recall how many kilowatt hours you have per person there, but it's like that amount of a certain amount of kilowatt hours, and that amount of kilowatt hours per person is twice the amount that they have in
yeah.
Germany, for example.
Yeah, I know and I've seen several bills. Most people do about 28, and this is for a household, a single household, use about 28 to 32 kilowatt hours per day. About a month, it's about 900 to up to 1,400 kilowatt hours a month. And then if when you look at the size of the United States and the concentration of things, you can almost just see how astronomical that number becomes as far as usage. But how did this become your passion?
Well, uh, I I started to investigate how much how much investment and how much resources would be needed in order to change transportation systems to electric. So I started to do that like 2005. So I've done it for a long time. I've written 6, 7 books about it. The first one being a global energy transformation in 2009. We published 2009. The business of global energy transformation published in 2012, and so on. And I investigated what would it mean for uh, the United States or for Europe to change all vehicles to electric. And well, you have quite a large number of cars in the United States, almost as many, as many as we have in Europe, although you're not as many people. But so in order to electrify all transportation, all cars, all trucks, all buses, you would need to double your your uh, power production. So that's quite a big amount, and it's really simple to calculate that, because you can just um, calculate uh, the how much electricity it would take to drive a car, uh, the average
Yeah,
distance that you do in the United States every year, and you drive twice as far on average each car as we do in Europe. So you can calculate that how much electricity would be required, and do the same or for trucks and buses, etc. And you'd find out how much electricity you'd need to power your entire your
fleet.
entire
Yeah.
vehicle fleets.
Yeah. One thing that I have to give a talk on it in a couple of months here, which is virtual power plants. And most of my information actually came from Europe because they're leading the way with virtual power plants. One of the things I'm thinking is if we were to adopt solar and renewable energies in homes for the majority of the homes and make it affordable or subsidized, you wouldn't need to actually double the electricity because people would be producing. Now, this is in conjunction with solar and storage. So if every house had solar and storage combined with the virtual power plant capabilities, you could offset that and wouldn't have to build these monolithic structures to produce electricity.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
the problem is, I looked at the country. The country is really big. Most of us are concentrated in central locations. So if you look at a night map of the United States, really half of the country is lit up with some spatterings, and then you have the West Coast. But what about that infrastructure for those sparsely populated areas? I don't know how that would work, but that's just my thought. So with that, when it came to you were talking about transportation, but you were talking mainly about trains and public transport, trains and buses. Now that the advent of electric cars is coming to the fold, does that augment those numbers any?
Well, I was talking about the amount of electricity that would be needed to power all cars and buses and trucks. So yeah, I don't know how much electricity would be needed for trains. I mean, trains are more uh, power efficient compared to, I mean, to transport 200, 300 people in a train, you need much less electricity
Mm.
than you need to transport the same number of people in cars, for example. So you could uh, save electricity or you save energy by uh, trans- going for train transportation. But what I've done is to compare what we'll say, what if we have the same number of cars? You have 280 million cars in all kinds in the United States. We have like the same number here in Europe. Um, and it's and what if all those vehicles would be electric? So I haven't tried to elaborate in any way regarding the possible switches between different modes of transportation.
Yeah, I know that from an electric car, if it's depleted, if it needs a total charge, it can pull about 30 kilowatt hours, which is what a family uses in a day. So they could double, but most of the time that wouldn't be so because you plan your trips, you just top it off. You might top it off at work and or when you go someplace, so you wouldn't really need that. So we may not need as much as we thought we did. But one of the things that if this were to happen, it could change the economic landscape. How do you see that affecting the economics, the jobs, and so forth?
Well, it's that's a big question because electric vehicles need different types of parts compared to um, gasoline vehicles and diesel vehicles. So you need less steel parts, less machine parts of different kinds. You don't need a drivetrain the type
Yeah,
you have in a diesel truck or a gasoline car. You need an electric drivetrain instead, which looks completely different. And
yeah.
the suppliers of electric um, equipment, electric motors, and so on, are not likely to be in the same places or located in the same places as the suppliers of machine parts, like Detroit or the Michigan area or or
Or
Stuttgart or
yeah.
southern Germany here. So instead, at least here in Sweden, we find that we have a lot of power suppliers or the suppliers of electric equipment in to the west of Stockholm. And in those areas where ABB used to what was founded and in the 19th century, and where this competence and where these clusters have evolved, and the auto industry is located around Gothenburg and south of Stockholm and so on. So it would cause a lot of people to have to move if
Oh,
they lose if you don't stop making diesel diesel trucks and gasoline cars. People would have to move to where the the components for electric cars are made, and there is a need for fewer man hours to make electric cars, less components, and
really?
so on. So I mean, there are only like 20 moving parts in an electric car, and well, of course, a lot of different other things like semiconductors, chips,
Yeah.
and electronics, well, rare earth minerals, etc. But these these vehicles look very different inside, so compared to traditional cars. So it would, I mean, people need to learn new skills to make electric cars. People need to move um, to get to the areas where there are clusters of electric of companies that make electric equipment and so on. And there will be a lot of demand in different areas, for chargers, for
That,
expansion of power grids, expansion, building new solar um, solar parks and
you
wind
know, I was
turbine
I
parks
was
and so on.
thinking that because as you were speaking, I'm thinking of the integration between electrification and renewables. So now when you venture to the grocery store, it's not just a big open parking lot now. Now it's covered in solar so that you chart with charging stations. Then you have to have electricians for charging stations. But charging stations are different in the fact that they run off of from a lot of software. So now you have to have software people, electricians, basic maintenance and monitoring. So there's a lot of industry that could come out of this. And we're not just talking about the car. We're talking about the support industries that move that. And then tires, because the cars are typically heavier, you're going to go through a lot of tires.
Yes, definitely, and the bigger tires as well. So uh, I mean, a lot of things are different on electric vehicles, and a lot of things will change in terms of how and where vehicles are produced if we change 100% or like 50% or something like that to electric vehicles. As well, as the situation is now, when you have like 3% electric cars in the United States. In Europe, we have, and you have less than 1% electric trucks. We have the same situation in Europe on
Yeah.
average. Uh, we haven't really experienced a situation where the electric vehicles require a lot of electricity, where the demand for electricity will increase substantially due to the use of electric vehicles. But when we have 15, 20, 30% electric, we have 14% in Sweden, but still a large percentage of those are almost more than 50% are hybrids with
Yes.
small batteries. So each electric car still doesn't use that much electricity, but we are approaching a situation in Sweden where we will see the demand increase, and we will even more experience that type of situation when we get more electric trucks, because those may not use as much electricity here. I mean, we use more power for cars, or we use more fuel for cars than we do for trucks here in Europe.
Really?
But yeah, we do. You don't. I know, but we do. So we use like something like 25% more fuel to fuel cars than we do fueling trucks. But we will see, when this amount of electric vehicles increases, and the amount of full electric vehicles increases at the expense of hybrids, we will experience a surge in demand for electricity, and a surge in demand for grid capacity, and a surge in demand for charging opportunities.
Yeah. The infrastructure of electricity in the United States is approximately 80 years old. A lot
That's
of
a problem.
Yeah, a lot of that is above ground. Some of the newer communities, it's gone below ground. And I've always asked this question, can we, with the existing infrastructure, can we handle what's coming online now? And the reason I ask this question is because I remember my mother saying we had two light bulbs and a radio.
Mm.
That was at the beginning. So people are like, hey, that's fine. Then the 1950s came after the war, more electric things came online. We were still sustainable. But now, when you walk into a modern home, no matter where you are in an industrialized nation, everything has a little LED on. It's always on. And then we want to add to that. So, what can governments do to work with businesses to update this?
Well, a lot of investment will be needed, uh, and but both in the United States and here in Europe, um, grids and power systems need to become digitized in a way that they aren't uh, fully at present. So, because in order to charge a lot of cars, we need to control charging. A lot of cars and trucks, we need to control charging. So the power company will need to be able to communicate with each vehicle and say, "Oh, we'll charge you later. We won't charge you now, but it's still plugged in." At present, when you plug your electric car in, or when you start to charge your electric truck, it starts to charge immediately. But
Yes.
in the future, when you have a lot of vehicles, and the load on power grids will be high, where like like at this point in the evening here
Yeah.
we're at 5:30 in the evening, in the afternoon. So at this time, when people get home from work, and they would plug in their charging of their cars, and when a lot of truck drivers, they leave their trucks at the depot, and they would plug in the charging of their trucks to be charged overnight. That would cause an immense load on the power grid. So in order to be able to use a lot of electric vehicles, utilities would have to be able to stop charging or control the charging, and say, this truck will be charged right now, but we wait to charge this one and this one and this one until later, and they need to be to be able to say this car doesn't need more than 20, like no, say 50% charging
Uh,
on the battery before tomorrow, because the owner has entered that figure in the car before he left, and before he started the charging. So now it's up to 50%, and now the charging can stop. And they would have to also be able to temporarily stop charging of 200,000 vehicles in order to take care of the peak in demand that's caused by people start cooking food, or showering, or
so
whatever that people do.
so gas could be, or natural gas for cooking, heating can be an offset to allow our current grid to be a little bit more stable and having smart grids as well. But like I said, that's a lot of updating, I believe, unless it's at the local level. Start at the small cities and work your way out, or how would you envision that?
Yeah, well, we need more intelligent systems in many ways, and they need to be able to switch between different fuels, and different,
Mm,
well, using energy for different purposes, and prioritize between purposes so that they differ. For example, charging until later at night, because I won't use my car until tomorrow morning anyway. So the systems need to be more intelligent. That can to some extent be built into the car, because I have a timer in my car, and I can
mm.
set the timer, but that doesn't necessarily play with the priority, with the situation at the utility. And they may see that, oh, now Matt's timer says it's going to his car is going to charge, but we still have a very big load on our power grid, so we don't want Matt's car to charge. We
Yeah.
want Matt's car to charge later at night, when the load has decreased. So that is it, it can't all be solved by timers and people setting the timers individually. There has to be the load on the grid, and the charging and everything, and the use of gas, for example, instead of electricity, if that's possible, would have to be managed and controlled
Mm.
by intelligent systems.
So one question that I have, I talked to my Amazon driver and they have electric vehicles. And the question that I asked them was, how does this function? What's your mileage in the winter? And they say
Hmm.
it dramatically decreases, or your range decreases in the winter. So with solar, you have decreased sun.
Hmm.
With electric vehicles, you have decreased range.
Hmm.
So is this where we really need these electrification strategists to understand how we adopt things and how we go from season to season?
That's not only a very good question; it's a brilliant question, and it's actually, well, something that very few have looked into, as is the overall um, need for power to power big vehicle fleet. But this is really essential, because to make it possible not only to use a lot of electric vehicles in the summer, we need to have even more power generation capacity to cater to the needs in the winter. And depending on where you are in the United States, this um, the, the difference between summer and winter could be more or less pronounced. I'm in the south of Sweden, and when we have zero temperature, 0 degrees Celsius, um, we I get about 20% less range on my electric car compared to when we have 20 degrees. And if I have when we have freezing temperatures like -10 or something like that, it's even reduced even more.
Yeah.
So in order to say, for example, that all vehicles in Germany. I often use Germany as an example because it's much better known than Sweden. So they have about 50 million cars, a lot of trucks as well, several million trucks as well, and they would need. Let's see. Yeah, they have 500 terawatt hours of electricity. They produce 500 terawatt hours of electricity. They have only half as much per person as you have and they would on average need say 250 terawatt hours of electricity in case all those were electric. And but that would be the average across the year. So on in the winter they would need more generating capacity than in the summer. Exactly how much I don't know, but say they would perhaps need 20% more in the winter compared to the summer. So and power grids and the power systems are always dimensioned for the peaks. So, and they would also need much more for certain peaks, just right before Christmas, right before Easter, when people go to visit friends or go on holiday, visit relatives. So then all motorways are clogged up in Germany
Yeah.
because everyone is going back. Not everyone, but many people are going back home. So at those points, a lot more generation capacity, or before those points in order to charge cars, and after those points in order to recharge. Once when people have been traveling to their friends and so on, you'd need much more electricity, and you'd need much more electricity around Christmas compared to how much you would need around Easter or around, well, in the middle of the summer when people also drive a lot. So because of the weather, because of the temperatures. So these differences in range and in efficiency of electric vehicle batteries between different seasons will be very important as well.
Does it also depend on your distance from the equator? And stay with me on this. When I was in Stockholm, it was January 2nd. It was dark at 3:30.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
I think like 2 o'clock, it was pretty much it was almost no sun. So that shortens your day for renewable energies to sustain, but your usage is the same. So now I'm seeing where this really has to be planned out, and you have to think about the peaks and valleys of human usage. But how can this change us for the better?
Well, it can change us for the better, but we need to do it in a structured way. We need to manage the change. We can't just say all cars and all heavy vehicles need to become electric by this year, and then hope for the best. We need to we need to plan for it, just like NASA did for the with the Apollo program. They say President Kennedy said we will. I challenge the nation to send a man to the moon before the end of this decade and bring him safely back. And in order to do that, NASA undertook a lot of very structured and planned activities. And that was only one organization, one that controlled the entire program.
Yeah.
But in this case, we have, well, there are thousands, tens of thousands of different organizations, companies, utilities, real estate companies, charging infrastructure operators, well, companies that invest in solar power generation, companies investing in wind power turbines, companies investing in nuclear, and so on and so on. So all these need to sing to the same hymn sheet. To some extent, at least, they need to understand what the goals will be and how much resources will be needed and what their role in this change will need to be. So, because all these companies, they have different agendas. They're some may be risk averse, some may be more positive to taking risk and positive to invest and so on. But in order to build up all these resources that will be needed, there will have to be some overall map of what needs to be achieved and which types of companies that need to achieve it. And we need to identify the bottlenecks and the hurdles to overcome, technology hurdles, well, big investments in power grids, etc., digitizing grids, whatever. And so a lot of things will need to be done, and we need to do it in a more structured way that we are doing at present.
And where can people find out? I know I said in the pre-show, the Global Energy Transformation Institute is where what you founded. What initiatives, what's in the future for the global energy?
Yeah, it's well, we are working with this um, to map what will be what will be needed in terms of resources, in terms of investments, and to understand and project the different activities that would be needed. And we realize we haven't come very far in this change, and countries have very few. Well, still only have like something like 2 to 3% electric vehicles. Most countries have. Um, uh, they have 2 to 3% electric cars, and much less than 1% electric trucks and buses. So there will be a lot of work to be done in order to succeed with this change. And there will be a lot of investment necessary in solar power generation, in wind power generation, but also in the base, well, to cover the base load of the systems, like in nuclear
Mm.
reactors and in power grids, and in the digitization of these systems to be able to control not only power generation, but also the different usages of power that need to be covered. So we work with this, and we run projects investigating and promoting these different well, the different activities that will be needed, and we realize there will be a much bigger, there will be a big need for electrification strategists, electrification architects that develop these systems.
Yeah,
And I look forward to some busy years ahead.
yeah, I believe so because it started here in the United States. It just we've got some challenges here in the United States, but I think it should start with if you're a smaller country, it might be easier for you. When it comes to the United States, you might start with certain cities or decent sized cities and states, and then let the peer pressure effect take a hold because you see what people are saying, quality of life gets better as well. Where can people find out more information about what you offer and how you can help?
Yeah, they can find it at my website, getinstitute.com.
And do you have a YouTube channel or?
Yes, I do. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Matt Larsson. They have to look for me there. I don't have a fancy name for it, and I posted uh, 25, 30 videos about a year ago, year and a half. So they need some patience to try to find me, but they can't find me.
Oh, yeah, that's not hard. Matt Larsson. Um, Matt, I want to thank you so much for being on the What's Up Solar podcast. This was really informative, especially in lieu of some of the changes that are happening in the United States and globally.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I
You're,
really appreciated our dialogue, and I wish you good luck with your channel.
thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you know where to find information about innovators, energy, and how it affects your life. So remember, there's one thing that I always let you know. There's this big ball in the sky. And the one thing that it will not do, it will sustain your life, but it won't send you a bill. Till next time, peace.